Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise and give you the essential knowledge fast. Today, we're diving into something really complex, really critical. The pharmaceutical industry's digital revolution. We're talking Pharma 4.0. It's like a complete system reboot that's changing how medicines get discovered, made, and delivered everywhere.
Yeah, and our mission really is straightforward. We want to give you a solid grasp of how these new technologies are coming together, how they're building smarter, more resilient operations, speeding up innovation, sure,
Yeah.
but also handling the huge risks involved in making drugs.
And this isn't just about, like, installing some new software, is it? It's much bigger than that.
Oh, absolutely not. Pharma 4.0 is. Well, it's taken the core ideas of the fourth industrial revolution,
Yeah.
digitalization, data, connection, and applying them directly to pharma, to manufacturing, quality control, the whole supply chain. It's definitely an evolution, building on what's there, but the impact, it feels pretty revolutionary.
So why now? The pressure seems immense right now. What's driving this urgency?
It's really a perfect storm of factors converging. First, you've got the economics, drug development costs are just spiraling, and regulations keep getting more complex. That's one big piece. Second, there's this growing demand for personalized medicine. Treatments designed just for you based on your genetics.
Yeah.
And the old ways, the batch manufacturing systems, they just can't handle that kind of flexibility easily.
Right. And then came the pandemic. That really threw a spotlight on all the weak spots in the old supply chain, didn't it? Globalized, often not very digital.
Exactly. That was like a massive real-time stress test. It showed everyone just how badly we need resilience and transparency. Pharma 4.0 is the industry's strategic response. The goal is to build operations that are intelligent, tough, and crucially focused on the patient. Operations that can pivot fast, whether it's a global crisis or just a sudden market shift.
Okay, let's really start unpacking this transformation. If Pharma 4.0 is the sort of brain and nervous system for this modern operation, what are the key technologies? Where should we start? Maybe the intelligence part, AI and machine learning.
Yes, AI and ML are absolutely foundational. They let the industry do things that are just beyond human scale. Think about analyzing these enormous, messy data sets, genomics, clinical trials, real-time factory data. AI can spot patterns, correlations that a human analyst might take ages to find or miss completely.
So when we talk about R&D, research and development, what does that actually mean in terms of like time and money saved?
The gains can be pretty staggering. In discovery, finding promising drug candidates, AI speeds that up dramatically. We're seeing numbers like up to 70% faster development cycles just in the preclinical phase, and maybe a 50% cut in costs for those initial tests simply by automating how experimental data is created and analyzed.
Okay, that's a huge push on the economic side. But what about when that drug actually gets to the factory floor? How does AI help make sure it's safe and high quality?
Right, on the production line, AI gets used in things like advanced vision systems, analyzing sensor data. These systems can detect really subtle problems, microscopic flaws in a pill's coating, tiny pressure changes in a fermentation tank, things a human inspector, working a long shift, might easily miss. So it boosts quality control massively and patient safety, too. It builds quality into the process instead of just trying to catch mistakes afterwards.
Okay, we've talked about the intelligence, the AI. But that intelligence needs a constant stream of data, right? How does the industry actually get that real-time info from equipment that might be spread out all over? This sounds like the Internet of Things, the IoT.
That's exactly it. The IoT infrastructure is like the nervous system. It's all the sensors, devices, instruments constantly measuring vital things. Temperature, pressure, vibration, humidity, you name it. And the key thing is real-time data flow.
And for things like vaccines or biologics, the most obvious use case is managing the cold chain, isn't it? Keeping things at the right temperature.
Oh, it's absolutely critical. IoT sensors track temperature and location nonstop during storage, during shipping. So if a container starts getting too warm crossing Arizona or too cold somewhere in Siberia, the system flags it instantly, not hours later when the product might already be ruined. That kind of 247 monitoring and immediate alert, it's just non-negotiable for making sure the drug works and meeting regulations.
Okay, next up is a concept that sounds a bit like science fiction, but it's actually delivering real value now. Digital twins. Can you break that down for us?
Sure. A digital twin is basically a dynamic, super detailed virtual copy of a physical thing. Could be a whole complex manufacturing line or even the chemical process happening inside a bioreactor. But unlike a static blueprint, the twin is constantly fed real-time data from its physical counterpart's IoT sensors. So it learns, it evolves.
So it's predictive. It can see what might happen.
Exactly. It lets operators run endless what-if scenarios. It can predict potential problems down the road and suggest ways to fix them before they happen. We've seen them used very effectively for things like optimizing fermentation in real time. And there are concrete examples. One company used a digital twin to predict a key component failure on a production line days ahead of time. That prevented a failure that would have cost them around $180,000 straight up.
Yeah.
So that foresight directly protects the bottom line.
That's powerful stuff. Now, thinking about the complexity of the supply chain drugs moving across borders through lots of different how do companies guarantee security? How do they track everything end to end?
Yeah, that's where blockchain technology comes into play. It creates this unchangeable, transparent record, a distributed ledger. Every single step, every transaction from the raw material source right to the pharmacy gets recorded. And that level of traceability is vital for fighting counterfeit drugs. That's a huge global problem, especially for valuable things like vaccines.
Okay, wait a second. If you're sharing potentially sensitive supply chain data across lots of different companies, manufacturers, shippers, distributors, how do you make sure that transparency doesn't accidentally leak confidential information to competitors? Isn't that a big risk?
That's a really excellent and critical point. And it's precisely why the pharma industry is mostly looking at permission blockchain platforms. Something like Hyperledger Fabric is often mentioned. Unlike, say, Bitcoin, where anyone can join, a permission system means every participant has to be known and approved. It allows for really granular control over who sees what. So a distributor might only see the data for their part of the journey, but the regulator can see the whole picture. It finds that balance between being transparent and protecting business secrets.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Let's bring it back to the factory floor for a moment. The physical changes, automation and robotics.
Right. Robots and automated systems, including these cobots, collaborative robots that work alongside people, are really enabling this whole shift. By taking humans out of certain steps, they reduce the chance of error and ensure quality stays consistent. That's huge for compliance. And importantly, they're crucial for moving away from the old style of making drugs in big, separate batches. They enable smaller, more flexible, continuous manufacturing lines. Plus, they can work 247 on those repetitive, sometimes dangerous tasks.
All right, let's pivot to the impact, the bottom line. For you, the listener, what do all these integrated tools actually mean for efficiency, for costs, and ultimately for patients?
The results, when measured, are pretty significant right across the board.
Wow.
Talking operational efficiency and cost reduction, going digital just streamlines everything. You get more output, lower costs.
Can you give us a specific example of those savings, maybe around keeping equipment running?
Yeah, look at predictive maintenance. Instead of waiting for equipment to break down or doing maintenance way too often just in case, AI predicts exactly when something needs service. We saw mid-size API makers, that's active pharmaceutical ingredient manufacturers, who focus this on their most critical machines. They cut downtime by up to 50% and saved up to $2 million a year just by optimizing when they did maintenance. That's money straight back into the business.
What about inventory? That's always tricky in pharma, right? Stuff expires, needs special storage, costs a lot.
Exactly. Inventory management becomes predictive instead of just reactive. AI-driven forecasting looks at incredibly complex factors like flu season patterns, demographic shifts, even what competitors are launching. It can achieve forecasting accuracy up to 95%, which means much less waste from overproducing things and lower costs for just holding inventory. We're talking about facilities potentially saving up to, say, $3.1 million annually just on carrying costs.
Saving money is obviously important, but the absolute core for pharma is quality and compliance. How does this digital shift actually make drugs safer and the whole process easier to audit?
It really embeds quality deep down at a fundamental level. A key piece here is using electronic batch records, or EBRs. They replace all the paper. This system enforces compliance with tough regulations, like the FDA's 21 CFR Part 11 rule. And it ensures adherence to that crucial data integrity framework known as LCOA plus DARE.
People often rattle off LCOA plus DARE, but what does it actually mean for data integrity in practice?
Right, it stands for attributable, legible, contemporaneous, original, and accurate. It's basically the global standard for proving your data is trustworthy. Think about it. If someone writes a measurement on paper, you have to prove who wrote it, when they did it, and that nobody changed it later. An EBR system does that automatically. Digital signatures, timestamps, it guarantees the data is reliable before any AI even touches it. And this shift away from paper, it's shown to cut transcription errors by like 90%. And real-time monitoring helps slash those out-of-spec incidents by around 65%.
And ultimately, collecting all this detailed data, having these advanced analytics, all feeds back into more personalized care for patients, right?
Absolutely. Being able to manage and analyze these huge amounts of really specific data, that's the tech foundation needed for personalized medicine. It means we can start tailoring treatments based on your unique genetic profile, your medical history, moving away from the old one-drug-fits-all model towards something much more customized.
Okay, this is where it gets really fascinating for me. The tech exists. The benefits seem clear, saves money, improves safety. Yet actually doing this transformation seems incredibly hard for many companies. Why is implementation still such a struggle?
I think the biggest single hurdle is fragmentation. The pharma industry has grown over decades, often adding systems piece by piece.
Hmm.
The result, these vast networks of legacy systems that just weren't designed to talk to each other. Reports suggest something like 65% of companies are really wrestling with these data silos. R&D data stuck over here, manufacturing data over there, supply chain data somewhere else entirely.
So what does that fragmentation actually look like day to day? Does it mean like someone in manufacturing has to manually type in data they got from R&D?
Sometimes it's that bad, yes,
Mhm.
but often it's worse because it just obscures what's really happening. If there's a problem on the production line, you might not have quick access to the relevant R&D context to figure out why. It just blocks that end-to-end view that efficiency Pharma 4.0 is supposed to deliver. The way around this architecturally is adopting things like API-first approaches and using cloud platforms.
Okay, explain that. What's an API-first architecture mean in this context?
Think of APIs, application programming interfaces, as sort of universal translators. They create a standard way for different software systems to communicate. So your new cloud-based analytics tool can talk to your old siloed manufacturing execution system without needing a complete, incredibly expensive overhaul of the old code. And the cloud platforms provide the backbone, the scalable computing power, and the central place to bring all that data together for that complete picture.
Makes sense. Beyond the tech itself, though, there's the regulatory side. This industry lives and breathes by strict compliance rules. Doesn't the fast pace of digital change clash with the necessarily slow, careful pace of getting things validated by regulators?
It absolutely does. It's a real tightrope walk. You need to innovate fast, but you have to stay compliant. Good news is regulatory bodies, like the FDA here in the US, they are adapting. Slowly? Maybe, but they are. They've set up initiatives like the Emerging Technology Program, or ETP.
And what does the ETP do specifically?
Its goal is to help speed up the review and validation process for these new kinds of technologies, like AI-driven manufacturing or quality control. The regulators get that the old validation models, which could take years, just don't work well for something like a machine learning model that's constantly evolving. But even with programs like the ETP, getting a new digital process fully validated, meeting all those data integrity rules, it's still a massive internal effort for any company.
Okay, and finally, the human element, the culture change. Resistance, skills gaps. Reports say maybe 60% of these big digital projects falter mainly because of people issues, not tech failures.
Yeah, that resistance is often the toughest part. You've got the obvious fear of people worrying automation or AI will take their jobs. That's real. But there's also something we sometimes call institutional muscle memory. It's just a deep-seated resistance in the workforce to changing processes that have been done a certain way, often safely, for decades.
Where does that muscle memory actually show up on the factory floor? Is it someone refusing to use the new system or just kind of believing the old manual way is better, safer?
It can be both. It might be preferring the familiar paper logbook over a complicated computer screen. Or maybe it's skepticism, doubting the AI's prediction about a machine needing maintenance because, well, that machine's never broken down before. It demands a real shift in trust in how work gets done.
So how do leaders actually get past that? How do they tackle that inertia?
The key is really clear communication about the why. Why are we doing this? And then strategically investing in retraining and upskilling. Leaders have to show how the technology makes jobs better or different, not just eliminates them, how it supports human expertise. And for training, there are cool new tools, using augmented reality or virtual reality for training, for instance. Some studies show it can cut the time needed to learn complex equipment by like 65%. It helps prepare people for roles focused more on data literacy, working with AI tools, critical thinking, rather than just following old procedures.
This has been quite the deep dive into really the future of health. So to quickly recap the big themes, Pharma 4.0, it's driven by this powerful combination of AI, IoT, digital twins, and it leads to real measurable benefits, cost savings, better quality, more resilient supply chains.
Exactly. But the key takeaway, I think, is that success isn't just about buying the latest tech. It's about strategy. It's about tackling those legacy system headaches, investing seriously in your people and the company culture, and doing it all while carefully navigating those tricky regulatory waters. Companies really benefit from using structured approaches, like the ISP's Pharma 4.0 maturity model, to map out their journey, to progress step by step toward being truly integrated and adaptable.
Okay, before we sign off, here's something for you to think about, building directly on what we discussed about tracking and efficiency. As these pharmaceutical companies get better and better at tracking everything, using data for efficiency throughout a drug's entire life cycle, think about the wider ripple effects, specifically on sustainability. For example, AI optimizing delivery routes. That directly cuts carbon emissions from logistics. And building these closed-loop supply chains, that opens the door for drug take-back and recycling programs. Programs that could potentially divert hundreds of thousands of medication units away from being incinerated each year. That creates environmental value and economic value. So the question for you is, as your industry digitalizes, whatever it may be, what sustainability metric will become the priority?
That's a great angle. It really shows that Pharma 4.0 isn't just about making things cheaper or faster. It's potentially about creating value in a much broader sense, across the whole relationship between the patient and the product.
Definitely something to consider. We really encourage you to explore these ideas further, see how they connect to the fields you follow. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll talk to you next time.